What animates our being? When we consider our deep internal motivations, the things which get us out of bed, the pursuits which hold our attention and our conscious gaze, it is important to truly assess the deeper underlying reasons which stir us as conscious entities. Our motivations, they can be very different. Some can be oriented outwards into the world towards what we may call material accumulation, something which we may also label as extrinsic motivation, because our activity is extending out into the world. We do something for what it may bring us, whether it be money, status, relationship, security. We see something that we want, and then we endeavor in various activities in order to attain it. But there is another kind of motivation which can animate our core, which can animate our being, and that is what we may call intrinsic motivation. And here, the act itself contains the reason for doing. We do something not for what it may achieve, but for its own sake, for the joy of doing. You see, to use an example, many people, they play music not for what it may bring them, though some certainly do. Some do choose to perform music for money, popularity, and stuff, but many people play music simply for the bliss of playing, just as children play, not to win, not to for approval, but because it is in their nature to do so. And so we should look at this difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and apply it to our own lives. We should inquire into the deeper causes that animate our actions. Are we always orienting to reality in this motion of looking ahead, always chasing something beyond the moment? Or are we immersed in the act itself, in the presence, in the activity? If we truly wish to live a life which is aligned with our highest selves, our highest purposes, we must ensure that we do not get lost attentionally and mentally in external and extrinsic pursuits alone. We should not become enslaved by materialism, enslaved by this constant sense of chase, of doing, of looking ahead rather than looking at reality. Because when we do this, we are always looking forward. We're always chasing. We're always doing something for the sake of something else, caught in this endless loop of pursuit. And we lose touch with presence. We lose touch with reality. Many of us are trapped within these endless cycles of work, optimizing for just productivity, and always just reducing our value into this economic productivity unit, relentlessly doing, relentlessly trying to get stuff, but for what? But for what? For whom? I should say that as members of society with responsibilities and obligations, we cannot entirely reject extrinsic motivation, but we should hold sacred the things that we do for their own sake. And this is where the domain of intrinsic motivation comes to the foreground. And we find these things that we do just for the sake of doing. And we find them in moments of presence, really, in moments of stillness, in play, whether it be enjoying nature, exercising, making music, sitting in silence. We should, for our own sake, carve out space for these acts, not because they are useful, but because they are life itself. When everything is filtered through a materialistic lens, we lose sight of this. We unconsciously assume that for something to be valuable, it must be productive. That unless we are earning, gaining, or achieving something, that time is wasted. And when we live our life with this lens, with this obsessively materialistic lens, we lose the sacredness of existence. We lose sight of what it is all about. And when we lose this sacredness of being, we become existentially lost. We become lost and ignorant to our divine origin. We become lost to the endless and timeless truth that the entire cosmos is but a play. We become really tangled in this web of anxieties, of obsessions, this mode of ceaseless striving. And when we let go of all of this mental phenomena which keep us thinking we've got to be doing something, we've got to be productive all the time. When we let go of that, we return to that childlike state of innocence which we have been conditioned out of by the labours of adulthood. We return to that childlike innocence of play, of existing, the joy of being, which we often remember, but we forget when we grow up. But I should endeavour to make clear that returning and reclaiming this childlike essence of play is not to abandon responsibility, but really it is a reclaiming of something that is essential for the alignment of mind, body, and spirit. It's not a retreat, it's not an escape from the obligations of life, but it is a remembering, a remembering that to play, to do for its own sake, is enlightenment itself. It is a form of enlightened activity. And when we realize this, when we can truly relax into being, to see the intrinsic joy to existence, not for what it may get us, not for how it may serve our egos. We see the joy simply in the fact that there is. And you are that. When we can see that, we find peace. We step out these loops of doing and feeling like there's something wrong and I must do something to rectify that internal dissatisfaction. When we can escape from that and relax into being, you find that that is not an activity. It's not a doing that finds this place. It's a letting go. It's a surrendering. And in that surrender, you lose the ego. It is the ego which stirs these feelings of dissatisfaction, this feeling I need to be doing something. I need to be productive. I need to be getting this thing. I need to be constantly looking out into the world to rectify an internal angst, an internal void. But this void cannot be solved by external means. It can only be solved by truth, by understanding the nature of mind, by understanding the nature of the ego in how it influences your mind and its thoughts, stirring these sorts of things to make you move. We can move in reality from an orientation of dissatisfaction, or we can move in reality from an orientation of wholeness, of completeness, in the knowing that you are everything and nothing. It's a paradox. But I'll leave that at that. Goodbye.